My Journey Transforming Dreams into Actions by Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. My mentor, Dr. Vikram Sarabhai. Teachers and mentors come at various stages into our lives. As a child, I looked up to my parents and my teachers. Then, my dear friend and brother in law, Ahmed Jalaluddin, guided me in the crucial years when I turned from a child into a man. And as my career was beginning, I was immensely lucky to come in the orbit of a man such as Dr. Vikram Sarabhai, a scientist, educationist, institution builder, and visionary. Dr. Sarabhai was one of the modern India's greatest thinkers and doers. He combined an acute intelligence with the qualities of a fine leader. It was the country's good fortune that he was chosen to helm its fledgling space program after independence. Much has been written about him and his many achievements that he set up ISRO, articulated India's space mission. He was a chairman of the Atomic Energy Commission and set up a number of other industries and educational institutions, not the least being the Indian Institute of Management IIM Ahmedabad. Yet, from where I saw him, he was all this. These were the stuff of legends and made him somewhat of a heroic figure for a young rocket engineer like me. And he was much more. I first met him when I was called for an interview by INCOSPAR for the position of rocket engineer. The call for the interview had come to me quite unexpectedly after Professor M.G.K. Menon of the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research saw my work on the Nandi hovercraft in Bangalore. I had little idea of what to expect at the interview or who would be conducting it. Neither did I know exactly what areas of my knowledge the interviewers would test. I went to Bombay with an open mind, telling myself not to raise my expectations too much. Life had already taught me that the best way to win is to not covet the win too much. Instead, to keep a calm and open mind to new challenges. I was interviewed by Dr. Sarabhai, Professor Menon, and Mr. Saraf, who was the Deputy Secretary of the Atomic Energy Commission. Each one of them was a storehouse of scientific knowledge. Yet, the warmth and graciousness that I felt in the room was remarkable. The interview set the tone for my future relationship with Dr. Vikram Sarabhai. He probed more into my thought process, trying to not only find out my level of knowledge, but to know what I was made of as a person, where my goals lay, and the possibilities for growth that I held within me, both as a professional and as a human being. He was encouraging, affable, and listened to me in such a way that instinctively I knew that there was a man who was not recruiting just an engineer. Rather, he was looking at my future potential and was investing his time and care in me. In my professional life, this was the first time that I had come across someone of his stature who seemed ready to envelop my thoughts and dreams into his larger vision for the country's space program. I was inducted into INCOSPAR. It was like a dream come true for me and a great career breakthrough. As I settled down into my role and got to know the institution and its processes and people, I was struck by how different it was from where I had worked earlier. The atmosphere was much more relaxed, and labels and hierarchy were not as important. Soon after, I heard the story of how Dr. Sarabhai set up the Thumba Equatorial Rocket Launching Station. It is a story I never tire of telling because, to me, it is the perfect coming together of science and spirituality, the twin driving forces of my life. It was the year 1962, and Dr. Vikram Sarabhai was looking for a site to establish a space research station. He visited a number of places. Tumba in Kerala in southern India was selected as it is near the equatorial region and is ideally suited for the ionospheric research in the upper atmosphere apart from the study of the atmospheric structure. When Dr. Sarabhai visited Tumba, the locality had a number of villages and thousands of fishing folk were living in that area. It also had a beautiful ancient church, the St. Mary Magdalene Church, and the bishop's house nearby. Dr. Sarabhai met many politicians and bureaucrats in order to get the place for building research facilities, but it was difficult to obtain permissions. Finally, he was asked to see the Bishop of Trivandrum, Reverend Father Dr. Peter Bernard. It was a Saturday when Dr. Sarabhai met the bishop. The bishop smiled and asked him to meet him the next day, Sunday. That day, after service at the church, the bishop told the congregation, "My children, I have a famous scientist with me who wants our church and the place I live for the work of space science research. Dear children, science seeks truth by reasoning. In one way, science and spiritualism seek the same divine blessings for doing good. My children, can we give God's abode for a scientific mission?" The church reverberated with a chorus of Amen from the congregation. Subsequently, Reverend Dr. Peter Bernard took the noble decision to dedicate the church building to India's national goal of establishing ISRO. That was where we had our design center, started rocket assembly, design of filament winding machine, and the bishop's house was our scientist's place. The church building has been maintained with love and care ever since and is a reminder to all of us of where the beginnings of our space program lay. Today, it houses the Indian Space Museum. Later, Turles led to the establishment of the Vikram Sarabhai Space Center VSSC and multiple space centers throughout the country. When I think of this event, I can see how enlightened spiritual and scientific leaders work harmoniously for larger goals. Later, a new church and new schools were established in record time at Tumba. The birth of Turles and then VSSC gave India the capability to design, develop, and produce world-class rocket systems. India developed the capability of launching geosynchronous, sun-synchronous, and meteorology spacecraft, communication satellites, and remote sensing satellites, thereby providing fast communication, weather forecasting, and also locating water resources for the country. Dr. Vikram Sarabhai is no longer among us, neither is Reverend Father Dr. Peter Bernard, but I see them as the flowers that blossom to bring value to others' lives. This is described in Bhagavad Gita. See the flower, how generously it distributes perfume and honey. It gives to all, gives freely of its love. When its work is done, it falls away quietly. Try to be like the flower, unassuming despite all its qualities. This story of how we got a rocket launching facility is an inspirational message for all generations. It is about the integration of minds. Nowhere in the world has a church been given for scientific research. It has happened only in India. It is a great message to be spread. The message is the best component of religion can be transformed into a spiritual force that will shape society. As I continued my work at what became ISRO, I came into contact with Dr. Sarabhai more and more often. He was giving shape to his vision of the country's space program by setting up the facility at Tumba, by conceiving the idea of India building its own SLV and at the same time building a rocket assisted takeoff system, RATO, which would enable military aircraft to take off even from the most hostile terrain. I would be amazed at the way his mind worked, the clear ideas, and the ability to look ahead even when such things were not apparent to the rest of us. Dr. Sarabhai's leadership qualities were such that he could inspire even the junior most person in an organization with a sense of purpose. In my opinion, there were some basic qualities that made him a great leader. Let me mention one by one. Firstly, he was always ready to listen. In Indian institutions, what often hinders growth is the reluctance of those at the top to listen to their juniors and subordinates. There is a belief that all decisions and ideas must come in a top to down manner. The line between leadership and bullying is a thin one. Dr. Sarabhai amazed us often with the amount of trust he placed in us. At INCOSPAR, we were essentially a bunch of young, inexperienced engineers with large quantities of zeal and enthusiasm within us. He harnessed this youthful spirit by giving us a vision and by also making us feel that we were part of a larger whole. His visits to Tumba would be preceded by days of feverish activity as each of us wanted to show him something new that had been developed, be it a new design, new fabrication, or even a new administrative process. He groomed us to become leaders in our own rights. A second quality that I believe stands a leader in a good stead is the ability to think creatively. When Dr. Sarabhai decided that we should build the SLV and the RATO, there appeared to be no immediate link between the two. Yet, time and again it was proved to us that his thoughts and tasks that initially seemed random were actually deeply interconnected. I was quick to realize this and made up my mind early on to remain alert and focused in order to be assigned unusual and demanding tasks to be implemented at my laboratory. In the larger perspective, Dr. Sarabhai envisioned India's space program as an integrated whole which would encompass the design and manufacture of rockets, satellites, launch vehicles, and launch facilities. A wide-ranging program for development of rocket fuels, propulsion systems, aeronautics and aerospace materials, tracking systems, and instruments also gathered space at the Space and Science Technology Center and Physical Research Laboratory at Ahmedabad. When Dr. Sarabhai gave shape to a vision to develop rockets in India, he was questioned along with the political leadership on the relevance of such a program when a vast majority in the country was battling the demons of hunger and poverty. Yet, he was in agreement with Jawaharlal Nehru that India could only play a meaningful role in the affairs of the world if the country was self-reliant in every manner and should be able to apply advanced technologies to elevate real-life problems. Thus, our space program was never simply a desire to be one among an elite group of nations. Neither was it a matter of playing catch-up with other countries. Rather, it was an expression of the need for developing indigenous capabilities in telecommunications, meteorology, and education. A third quality that I observed in Dr. Sarabhai and which I have tried to incorporate in my own way of working was an ability to build teams. Dr. Sarabhai had an uncanny knack of spotting the right person for the job. He would then back the person completely, even if he or she lacked experience. He also had his own ways of raising morale, a much required ability in a leader, particularly in a field like ours, where we often had to battle odds and failures. When required, he could make the bleakest scenario appear not so dark. He would praise us even if we had not completely reached our goal, if he felt that it was justified, and he never stinted on using humor to elevate the tensions inherent in our field. All of this helped him build teams and institutions that remained steadfastly loyal to him and his vision. Each person knew he could contribute and that the contribution would be recognized and valued. And finally, that great quality of his to look beyond failures. I remember that for one of his visits to Tumba, we had prepared a demonstration of the nose cone jettisoning mechanism of the SLV stage we were working on. The plan was that when Dr. Sarabhai pressed a switch, the pyro system would be activated through a timer circuit. But when he pressed the switch as requested, nothing happened. I was in a state of shock along with my colleague Pramod Kale, who had designed and integrated the timer circuit. We quickly gauged the problem as being one within the timer and gave direct access to the pyro after detaching it. When Dr. Sarabhai pressed the switch this time, the pyros were fired and the nose cone was jettisoned as it was supposed to. Dr. Sarabhai congratulated us on our work, but there was a thoughtful look on his face as he said goodbye. That evening, I was asked to meet him at the Kovalam Palace Hotel in Trivandrum. I had an uneasy feeling as I made my way there. He met me with his usual warmth and spoke about the rocket launching station. Then he turned to the instant of the morning. I readied myself to be upbraided. Instead, Dr. Sarabhai dwelt into deeper issues. Were we unenthused by the job, or was it not challenging enough for us? After talking to me, we finally came upon a reason behind the morning's failure. We needed an integrated space for the system integration of all our rocket stages and rocket systems. After pinpointing this reason, Dr. Sarabhai stayed up late into the night, redefining roles and coming up with a new department, the rocket engineering section. As I have mentioned, mistakes and failures are a part of every project, particularly in ones like ours where we work on a number of systems and various teams are responsible for different stages, where even a small error at one stage can put to waste years of hard work. Dr. Sarabhai used these mistakes as gateways for innovation and development of new systems. He had the ability to look beyond the specific error and read what lay behind it. He kept room for errors and instead tried to analyze how we could make them manageable so that we ruled the project and not our fear of failure. The place ISRO now has in the community of spacefaring nations is second to none. It has developed world-class satellites, satellite and rocket launches, and has provided invaluable service to the country in the fields of scientific research, innovation, education, and telecommunication facilities. So much so that it has sent an orbiter to the moon, the Chandrayaan-1, and will soon send a probe to Mars. all of this grew from the seeds planted by Dr. Sarabhai and nurtured by the likes of Satish Dhawan and subsequent chairman of the organization. My relationship with Vikram Sarabhai was a deeply emotional and intellectual one. Time and again, he placed his faith in me to lead teams that would design and develop mechanisms to take India further and further on her course to becoming a self-reliant nation in terms of science and defense. He took the young rocket engineer sitting before him, answering his questions with honesty and clarity, into his fold and shared his own dream of building rockets and missiles with him. He stood by me in the moments of crisis and doubt, of failure and success, guiding me, pointing me on the right path when necessary, or showing me where the path lay when I was confused. He was a giant among men, and I was fortunate that I could grow in his shadow. Dr. Sarabhai's death came as a cruel blow to me, not least because it was completely unexpected. In December 1971, I spoke to him from Delhi, updating him about a missile panel meeting that I had just attended there. He was in Tumba then and asked me to meet him at Trivandrum airport after landing from Delhi, as he would be on his way to Bombay. That meeting never happened. I landed at Trivandrum a few hours later to hear the news that Dr. Sarabhai had passed away from a cardiac arrest. I came to know that he died an hour after our conversation. The man who nurtured scientists and engineers who would go on to head important scientific projects of the country, who was a great scientist and a leader, was no more there for us to turn to. But before his going, he had equipped us with the knowledge, confidence, and foresight required to take on all sorts of challenges, and I believe that our greatest homage to him was for each of us to realize our own true potential, which he had spotted at the very first meeting. It is perhaps a pattern in my life that those closest to me pass away suddenly without warning. What has that taught me? For each person I lost, I found a new layer of grief to cover myself with, and each time I tried to bring something of their essence into my own being, be it unconditional love, kindness, and pity. In Dr. Sarabhai's case, perhaps it was the ability to look ahead, to plan, to build, and to create. If I have achieved even a part of that through my actions and through the various roles I have been entrusted with, I consider myself successful in living up to the expectations of this great visionary of India.